Hello. Welcome to Wanderlusting Lawyer. I have a fun video today talking about one of my favorite subjects, food. I'm starving right now, so this will be a fun thing to do. But before I get into that, I just wanted to really thank you all for your continued support. It's so heartwarming for me when I get comments from you and continuing to see the channel grow. I'd hoped by this point, kind of nearing the end of the summer, the high Camino season, I'd be at 2,500 subscribers. I have an awesome giveaway when I hit it, a commemorative Camino coin that sold out in like a week or something when it went on sale about this time last year. But I've just got to realize that it's harder for me to grow because I can't, unlike a lot of Camino content creators, I just can't do that many Caminos with the kind of career that I have right now. I wish I could do more. I wish I were closer to some of the Camino routes that I can even just hop away for a week or so. But right now it's pretty tough. I'm hoping to do one this summer, whether it's a week or two. I'm really hoping to make that happen. I'll just have to see how it works out with my schedule. But yeah, I can't give you guys the boots on the grounds, I suppose, content as much as other creators can, but I do try to provide information. I think that's what I'm best at. Is I'm somebody who asks a million questions myself, and so I try to provide unique insights and just make information accessible. So I just want to say I really appreciate everyone's support, and just to keep things fun, I'm going to do a giveaway at 2,300 subscribers, which will hopefully be soon, and then 2,400. The last time I was in France, I picked up 2 more of these Atlas books I've only ever seen in France. They have really cool images of all the Camino routes through at least France and some of the main routes through the north of Spain. And also, like, for example, this cool, pretty comprehensive map that shows a lot of the different routes. So I've got 2 of them. I'll give one away at 2,300, 2,400. So stay tuned for that. But yes, today I'm talking about my top 15 things to eat in Spain, or really on the Camino de Santiago. Now, you won't find all of these everywhere you go, but these are 15 things that I love to eat when I'm in Spain. And just as a bonus, I'm going to give you 3 I do not like. Obviously, these are my personal opinions. There may be things you hate and love, vice versa from me. But I just feel like talking about food, I guess. And I will include in the description below the written names of all of these, so you can make it, if it sounds good to you, you can make a note of it and look for it on a menu. So, number 1, I'll basically be starting, I guess, with breakfast and working my way on to dessert, more or less. Number 1 is, you may think I'm going to say café con leche, but that's number 2, Napolitanas. Now, Napolitanas, when you're talking about like chocolate, croissants with chocolate in the middle in Spain, they are not called pain au chocolat like they are in France. And with good reason, they are 10 times better, in my humble, subjective opinion. That's because I think the pastry is flakier and there's way more chocolate. It's like a dense chocolate, like center the whole way through. Whereas a pain au chocolat in France just has 2 small chocolate rings running through the sides, and they tend to be softer, in my opinion. So Napolitanas, these are my absolute favorite thing to get for second breakfast on the Camino. You know, when you take that stop around 10:30 in the morning to maybe use a cafe restroom and get some more coffee or whatever it is you drink. Napolitanas is where you gotta go. They're just so good. When they would be sold out when I would stop somewhere, I would be really sad. They're the best if you get them right out of the oven. I don't think most places make their own. I could be wrong. I mean, a bakery will, but I think the restaurants, the cafes and stuff, just get them from the restaurants, but they're all delicious. So number 2, obviously, has to go hand in hand for me, café con leche. There are different ways to order coffee on the Camino, and actually, that's a good idea, I think, for a video, is to give you guys an insight into Spanish coffee culture. But café con leche, for me, is the top of the top. My favorite coffee, really anywhere in the world. I think I've heard it's because of the special way that they treat the beans. I believe they're espresso beans, and it's basically like a mini latte, but heavier on the coffee unless you order it differently. And just so delicious. And sometimes they're actually served in little glasses, which doesn't make sense because you're sort of burning your finger as you drink it. So you see the Spanish are really adept at kind of holding the top of the glass. But they're delicious. They're unless you're in a high touristy area, they're never more than €2 really along the Camino, often more like €1, 125, 150. And they're delicious. And sometimes they're served with like a tiny little cookie or chocolate on the side. So yeah, I was drinking 2 to 3 to 4 of these a day on the Camino. Number 3, so when I need a bigger breakfast option, it's either number 3 or number 4 on my list. It's my favorite, and it's been my favorite since my days teaching in Spain way too long ago to admit, but it's called tostada con aceite, or in the Spanish accent, aceite y tomate. So, or in Catalan, pan tumaca, I think is the official name. And I believe the breakfast dish is said to come from that region. But it is basically grilled bread, so toast, which they drizzle with, I think it depends on the place. Sometimes they drizzle with olive oil first, which is how I prefer it. Doesn't really matter though. And then you get tomato served in one of several different ways. I've seen just tomato slices. I think that's tomate en rodaje is when it's just sliced tomato, which you may be able to ask if you prefer it that way. Or my favorite is when it's kind of like crushed up and spread kind of like, I suppose, a watery paste on the toast and then sprinkled with salt. Sometimes they'll give you the salt on the side. If you want to go extra, you can get ham on it. We'll get to ham and my feelings on it later. But that is an awesome breakfast option for when I've already had a sweet breakfast option or I'm trying to stay away from sugar for that day. Another good option is tortilla de patatas. This is basically the Spanish version. I don't want to say an omelet because omelet you think thin. It's more like a frittata if you've had one, a thicker, almost looks like kind of a mini cake, if you will. It's usually about this depth. It can sometimes be much bigger. Always has potatoes in it. Sometimes has onion or other things in it. So if you need the word for onion, it's cebolla. But onion is rarer. And the way I love it is tortilla jugosa, juicy, liquidy, where they actually don't cook the egg through and through. So it's a little bit runny and it's extra delicious. And you can get this, it's great to get a slice to go if you need it later or on a sandwich. Spanish people like putting it on sandwiches, which I'll talk about sandwiches later. Number 5, salmorejo. So now we've moved more into like lunch territory. Salmorejo, or if they don't have salmorejo, gazpacho. You've probably heard of gazpacho or gazpacho, but you probably have not heard of salmorejo unless you've lived in Spain, especially in the south. This is from Córdoba in Andalusia in the south. So they're both chilled, cool tomato-based soups, but that's kind of where the similarities end. Gazpacho is the healthier one. It's made from a base of tomato, green pepper, and cucumber, blended into a soup, and it's often quite drinkable. Whereas salmorejo is made from a base of tomato, garlic, and stale bread. So it's thicker. You have the bread that's in there, and it's also blended up into a soup. And it's often served with like a drizzle of olive oil on top and some ham crumbles. That's the most traditional way I've seen it served. But it is delicious, especially on a hot Camino day. So my next one this is probably more of a dinner dish, but I have it here anyway. Carillada. This is braised, the braised cheek of an Iberian pig. And this is basically the top of the top when you're talking about pig quality, pork quality. They're only raised, certain of these pigs are only raised on a specific type of acorn found in the Huelva and Sevilla province of Spain. So this is almost, think of like almost like a pot roast type of texture or a short rib type of texture, extremely tender. I know I'm sorry for the vegetarians out there. I actually have way cut down on my meat consumption since meeting my wife, and rarely have meat. Many days not at all, but almost never more than once in a day. But this is a delicious, delicious dish, and the French cook it right. It's always in some type of really good sauce. So Carillada, if you're looking for a little bit more of an upscale tapas. And I actually saw this as one of the dinner options at the albergue that I stayed in Ruesta, I want to say, on the Camino Aragonés, the place that has Ruesta, that has the ruins, where you're basically staying in like an old kind of castle fortress ruin, and it was delicious. Pisto. So I have a video about vegetables on the Camino. People are diametrically opposed to whether there is good quality of fresh vegetables on the Camino. I tend to say no, but there are options. And one of my favorite, when I see it, usually as a primer plato on the pilgrim's menu, is pisto. This is, if you've had ratatouille, as we say in English, the French dish of basically a bunch of cooked vegetables. This is very similar. It's usually tomatoes, onions, eggplant, green red peppers, some olive oil. And sometimes the tomatoes, like the way they're crushed, make a little bit of a sauce, but I don't think it typically has a sauce. But it's great, good way to get in your veggie intake. It is a warm dish. Then, so keeping with the veggie theme, Spanish salads. I do like these. I don't often get them in when I'm doing like a pilgrim's menu, just because they're not super filling, but they're more filling than your traditional salad, but they're very unique. So, and I never saw this, I've never seen this really anywhere else. So most typical Spanish salads, unless they're a specialty salad, come with raw onion, white Spanish onion, I'm sure. Sometimes some like bigger wedges of tomato, some shredded carrots, and then two typical for Spain inclusions are corn and tuna. So think of like, canned type of tuna, not ahi tuna. But they're pretty good salads. I like them a lot. You get olive oil and usually red wine vinegar on the side with some salt. Served very simply, but they are refreshing and good. And a lot of places have a lot more vegetable variety in the salad. So that's a good way to get in your veggies. And if you're like me and you've eaten too many Napolitanas and you need to cut back a little, get the salad. Patatas bravas. So you're going to see French fries everywhere on the Camino because they're cheap, filling, and basically accompany almost any dish that you get from a pilgrim's menu, at least. Patatas bravas, in my opinion, are a little bit more upscale. They're more like cubed potatoes, so almost like a breakfast potato type shape, and fried. So they're usually crunchier, but since they're thicker, they stay softer in the middle. And served with some type of spicy, usually mayo-based sauce. It's sometimes just like mayo, ketchup, and I don't know if it's sriracha, but some type of kick to the sauce that's on the top. And they're delicious. Empanada gallega. You may not see this much outside of Galicia, but I actually first had this tapa, or this dish, in Sevilla. It was at almost every bar in Sevilla, so it's obviously expanded outside of Galicia, but I don't recall seeing it much on my Camino until I got to Galicia. So this isn't, if you've had empanadas before, like in South America and in Argentina, or places like that, it's not kind of the half moon shape. This, which I personally don't think I've ever seen in Spain. These are flatter. So they do have like a flaky crust and a pastry bottom, and then the middle in the empanada gallega, the one that I'm most familiar with, is almost like a red sauce with tuna in the middle. It's really delicious. I like it a lot. It's good to eat on the go as well, if you need a quick lunch or something for later. Sorry, I'm gonna take a pause for a second. I've had somebody comment and say that I don't look my viewers in the eye, and it's rude. I'm sorry that it's rude, but I actually look at the screen of my phone when I'm filming, because it's like I like to see myself and engage that way. But the camera itself, for me to look directly in your eyes, which I assume it feels like I'm doing now, be me looking at the little camera. I'm gonna keep looking here in the screen because it's just more comfortable for me when I make these videos, but I'm very sorry if you feel that I'm being rude. The next one is Gambas al ajillo, like garlicky shrimp, basically swimming in olive oil. So delicious. It's served piping hot, like it's usually the olive oil still bubbling. Some of the best shrimp I've ever had. They're usually small. All the shrimp I've seen in Spain are all small. They're not the US size shrimp that I'm used to, or the ones I've had in Argentina that are massive. But it's a delicious tapa if you see it. Pimientos del Padrón. If you've done a Camino, if you've been in the Facebook groups, in the forum for a while, you've probably seen people post about these. They are, and you can find them in the US, certainly at like Whole Foods. I think I've seen them at maybe Trader Joe's, places like that. They're a green pepper. They're usually not spicy, but every once in a while you get a Trader pepper that is spicy. And the trick is to have like piping hot oil to just give them a couple, maybe like 2 minutes on each side so they get a little char, but they stay a little crispy. I'm not an expert at cooking them. They're amazing in Spain. They know how to cook them there. Highly recommend getting pimientos del padrón. Next is bocadillos. So that basically just means what you think of as a sandwich, but on more of like a smaller, like a roll or a baguette style bread, as opposed to like what we consider sandwich bread in the US. Unless you buy it from a supermarket, you'll never have a bocadillo sandwich served on sandwich bread. You can get them in so many different like so many different meat options. Just get veggie and cheese, tortilla de patatas. My two favorites are chicken and lomo, which is like a pork tenderloin, served pretty thin. I'm not a huge pork person, but it's really delicious. Sometimes it'll have peppers on it. Can't go wrong with a bocadillo. Usually pretty cheap, $5 or less, and often come with like a drink or fries or something on the side. Okay, this next one, I've talked about this in another video, and then I know the documentary about these wonderful creatures came out. I haven't watched it, so I apologize in advance, and I really don't eat this often, but when I am in Spain, especially in Galicia, I make an exception. It's pulpo a la gallega. And that's not how you say it in the language they speak in Galicia, but I'm not even going to try. I don't want to butcher it. So this is basically tenderized boiled octopus that is then served with olive oil and paprika. It is really delicious in my opinion, but I understand that it might be a polarizing option. But highly recommend trying if it's not against your personal beliefs. And finally, a dessert item. I can't say, I've had some good desserts in Spain, but there's not many desserts that I'm crazy about in Spain. One that I do like, and it's usually the one I'll get on a pilgrim's menu unless they have like a delicious like Magnum ice cream bar or something, is natillas. It's usually like a vanilla style pudding. It's a pudding style dessert. It's usually vanilla when I've had it, sprinkled with cinnamon and like a kind of vanilla, not very flavorful cookie in it, but I like it. It's good. So that's what I get for dessert usually, because most of the pilgrims menus come with a dessert option. I've had some really delicious dessert options, like a molten chocolate lava cake and stuff, but they're just not unique to Spain. All right, so now 3 things I personally do not like eating anywhere but in Spain. And the first one, I can't tell you how many Spaniards, especially in the region in Andalusia where I was living for a long time, cannot believe this, but I do not like Spanish ham, the jamón ibérico. Even the best of the best I've had from like right from the source, I just don't like raw meats in general, or cured meats, I guess is the better way to say it. I don't love chorizo in Spain. I don't really like prosciutto either. So it's just not my thing, but it is a Spanish delicacy. I mean, one of those ham legs costs like $1,000 or something. So I definitely recommend trying. I have had times when I've disliked it less than others, usually when it's sliced very thin. But it's just not my thing. But if you get a chance to try it, definitely try it. Second one is a dish I think is more commonly seen in the south of Spain. So if you're doing like the Via de la Plata that leads from Sevilla, you might see it more there. Espinaca con garbanzo. This is basically cooked garbanzo, which is chickpeas, as we say, with cooked spinach and maybe covered in like a little bit of a sauce. I just hate cooked spinach personally, so I'm not going to eat that. But if you see that, if you like spinach and you like chickpeas, get it. I know people love this dish. It's like one of the most popular tapas, at least in the South. So not for me, but maybe you want to try it. And the last one is probably the most famous Spanish dessert, flan. I hate flan unless it's a cream cheese or any cheese-based flan. Then I like it. But usually flan is made up of mostly egg and some type of milk. I just feel like I'm eating a sweet egg, which is kind of what it is. I don't like it. I'm not here for flan. So personally, I always choose natillas or ice cream or something else on the dessert menu. But I hope this was informational, useful. Again, I'll write all the names of these dishes, tapas, in the description below, so you can bring it if you need to compare it against a menu. One thing I didn't mention, Spain has great mushrooms. Like the mushroom tapas are great. You might see champignon, you might see boletus. There's some different words for mushrooms, but you usually cannot go wrong with a mushroom tapa. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. For anyone who's out there doing a fall or winter camino, I want to wish you a muy buen camino. Bye, guys.